Good evening, everybody. My name is John Keene. I am one of the members of the judging committee, and what we're going to hope to bring you tonight is a roundtable discussion with members of the string band judging community. These are folks that have lent their talent and knowledge to us over the past many years, and we're going to try and take the curtain back just a little bit and let you see the parade from the way we see it New Year's Day in our judging stand and area, and having to make the tough decisions of putting these bands in order. I'm going to introduce the folks that are on the call tonight, and they'll raise their hands, and I'm going to let you know how many years that they've been with us and what captions that they've judged, to give you a good idea of how many years of string band experience, not just judging experience, have with us tonight. I'm going to start with Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones has judged the parade for 4 years. He's judged both the visual performance caption as well as the general effect visual caption. Larry Hirschman has judged the parade for 13 years. He has retired. I think we did that to him. We broke Harry 3 years ago when it was incredibly cold and 2 degrees. He has also judged the brigades. So many of our judges also have done both because of the fact at the time we were hiring them through the city. We also have Julian Williams. Julian judged 12 years. With the parade. He had judged captain, visual performance, and general effect visual. Paul Smith, who has judged the parade for 3 years. Paul judged music playing as well as general effect music. Gary Ulrich. Gary judged 14 years and also judged brigades. Judged GE music. He's judged captain, music playing, and GE visual. I also forgot to mention that Paul was actually a participant in this parade back in the 70s. Paul played in the brigade bands back when we used to have live music on the street. Also, all the way from his new home in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is 24/7 mum music all the time, he judged for 12 years. Bob Rallier judged general effect music as well as music playing. And last but not least, looks like we have our internet connection straightened out. We can see her. I'd like to introduce Judy Olshinsky. Judy has judged string bands for 3 years. She has judged captain as well as general effect visual. So our chief judge, who also judged, not just a chief judge, but judged the parade for 22 years he's been with us, is Tom Beebe. He judged music playing, general effect music, visual performance, and currently serves as our judging liaison with the city as well as with the association. I'll also introduce Jack Daly. Jack is the chairman of our judging committee, and we've both been on the committee since 1991. Jack has been chairman the last 3-4 years. Jack,
since right before Tom Ferry died, so it's been a little longer than that.
And tonight, what we're going to try and do is have a little bit of a discussion with everybody here on some of the things that you see as our crowd and our fans, and things that we see as judges. And one of the first topics I wanted to kind of bring up for discussion was kind of what is the difference between how our fan watches the parade and what our jobs are as judges and how we view it. I kind of always say to fans when I try and describe it is, you react and you're entertained to the show, but as judges, it's our job to figure out how well the band did it, because all of the things that you see are planned. Wanted to tackle that topic for our first discussion piece.
Sure, Larry will, because yep. Larry's the only retired guy that's on here now. And I can tell you that when we judge, we're looking at one thing. We have a specific caption that we're there to judge, and we just get to look at that. And when an audience is sitting there either on the TV or on the street that day, they get to look at everything. They get to look at all of it and just take it all in and be thrilled to death with everything they're seeing. The reason that we judge really with tunnel vision, we're just looking at one thing, is to make sure the bands get credit for everything they do. So there's a music playing or a visual performance, or in my case, most of the time, it was general effect visual. And I get to look at all those visual things and put tunnel vision on. So sometimes I don't look at everything that I want to. I'm looking at just what you're telling me to look at, so I can give proper credit to the band for putting the time and effort in for that particular moment that they created.
You kind of delved into another topic that I had put down further on my list, but everybody's looking at that show with 2 eyes and 2 ears, and if we're just talking about the band per se, we've got 8 eyes and 8 ears looking at each one of these different facets. So while we're talking about an overall show, there's really 8 individual competitions going on, because you're all so engrossed and so focused on your captions that we all have that conversation later on in the evening where it's like, well, who did you have up? Because in some cases, we might not really know who won the parade. We only know who did well in our caption. Paul, I'll jump in and let you jump in here, like with the 2 captions that you've judged, and how focused how different they are. You've had the benefit of being downstairs and upstairs. We have 2 different levels that we judge from, and the different perspectives that they bring in.
Yeah, the difference is dramatic. Depending on where you're sitting at the lower level, you could be either on the street or up just a little bit, and everything is coming really close to you and in your face. Whereas up top, you're getting a broader perspective, and you're getting not only all the music, but also the visual aspect of what's going on. And to build off of what Larry was saying, zeroing in on a caption, everybody has a clear set of criteria that we use, and that's what we're looking at. And everybody is zeroing in on their captions, their rubrics, and building off of that to give the bands the best view possible.
There's kind of, and anybody can jump in, there's kind of a I want to say a misconception, even probably from some of the participants who don't get to come to our clinics and symposiums, that we have criteria, but the criteria is not necessarily expectations. It's not like a compulsory where we're asking these bands, they have to do X, Y, and Z. And if they do X, Y, and Z, they're going to be successful, or they're going to win. So it's kind of explain a little bit like the difference, if somebody wants to jump in, the difference between criteria and a compulsory, if you will, where we don't really have expectations. We let the show come to us.
Well, I know since I got involved in, I think my first parade was 2016. I know that over the last couple of years, we've been pushing the bands to be their own. They don't have to do what this band is doing or what that band is doing. Like John said, like the compulsories that we want each band to be individual. And, so in our post-parade critiques, if you will, our roundtable discussions, I know that's been a lot of part of the discussion. So, it's neat to see the bands grow, over the last 5 years. I agree with, Paul and Larry, when you're judging downstairs, it's you're analyzing. When you're judging effect, it's cool just to be able to react to what you're seeing. And the first time when I did effect in 2017 for the first time, it changed my whole perspective on the marching activity, not just what I do, but the mummers. And it was just an awesome experience to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I agree. The mummers are amazing, and their use of color and design and excitement is like no other activity that we ever see. But our job when we're judging is to take that criteria and to see how all this develops. Someone in the crowd may enjoy the captains being up in front and the colors and the sound, or maybe a banjo feature. But our job is to take a look at everything and weigh it so that we can judge each group the same way, and give each group a fair opportunity to be able to win that parade.
Yeah, when I look at my watching, I'm trying to view it as a storyline and looking at it from different perspectives of how things integrate and how some of the effects that being achieved. Downstairs, I've yet to see it from that level, but upstairs really gives you a different perspective on how they present itself.
I think the other thing is it's probably the only thing that we really hold the bands to, is that each band they pick their own theme. It's their decision. It's their concept, whatever they think that they can do well out of the 3 different captions, music, visual, or costume. And it's really, we're just holding them to the standard of development of what they found out in that show, what they put across. How well did they develop, as Julian said, the storylines, that the storylines involved in how they get developed. I have a couple of people that have written both, have written visual shows and have written musical shows and things of that nature. I'm gonna pick on our new New Orleans resident, and Bob, with the arrangement, because that's something that you always, one of the things you and I always have conversations with New Year's Day is about the arrangements and how they've developed over the years that you've been involved.
The actual musical arrangements have developed greatly over it's been 12 years since I started doing this, 12 or 13 years. And it's not your very basic old time, I'm down here in New Orleans, your Dixieland, Mummer Strut, all the kind of stuff that is, that quote unquote, I don't want to say old school, but older era mummers. And the reason I believe that has elevated to the point, the musical arrangements have elevated to the point they have, is because we put such a high priority through the way we view the overall program, that now the intricacies and the way you develop musically also has to be the way you develop visually. And if you're going to do a big visual development, then that has to be done musically together. And they have to be proactive in taking us around the stage, as it were, on the street. I always, when I talk into critiques to other groups, I tell them, I don't want to go to a tennis match where I'm reacting and snapping my head to every shot. I want it to be more like a basketball game where I watch the flow go down to this end of the court, and then something's going to happen down over here, and then over here. It should be, and the intricacy of working the visual and the musical together, and that coordination that has elevated both arrangements. I believe the visual charts and the actual stage design is way better than it was 10 years ago, and the music has elevated itself to that point also.
I think also the talent, I can go back from when I first started as a very young musician in the 70s, and Jack can probably bear this out as well, because we've been involved probably as long as that long of a period of time. But the level of musicianship, the talent of the musicians that we have in our division now and throughout the street is really kind of amazing, and that lends to the musical development. Jack, I think you can probably speak to, when we first started, or I remember back in the 70s, probably a third of the groups played by ear. They weren't all reading music, and now it's very odd to find that type of musician in a string band.
Very few of them today, I believe. And that's because as the arrangements became more and more sophisticated, more and more difficult, and that really started really in the late 60s, if you really want to go back. And as we got into the 70s and then 80s, they really became much more difficult, much more sophisticated. And there really wasn't a place in the lineup for somebody who wasn't able to read music and play it effectively because of the difficulty of the arrangements that were being prepared for us. So yeah, it's really changed. And all you have to do is go back and if you get any of the old tapes or go onto YouTube and you can find something from back in the 70s, and then listen to something from this past year, you'll see the differences. Even to an untrained musician, untrained non-musician, you can certainly hear the difference in what's being played today.
Now, I will say this only because in what we're talking about musically, and at no point for those of you that have judged music playing is the word demand or content or difficulty on our sheets. So it's not something that we require. We just want them to play well. Gary, if you haven't jumped in yet, why don't you jump in on that one?
We have a frame of reference as to what our caption is looking for, enjoying, and appreciating and absorbing out of the ensemble. Nothing is concrete, nothing has to be, nothing is required. And when we talk about those words like content and difficulty and whatever, in the way of describing our individual captions, they're guide points. They're not, it's kind of like having a budget. You know, a budget is a target. You know, and you have to adjust it sometimes based on how much money is available. And that's kind of what we're doing inside our individual captions too. We have guide points, we have words, we have expressions, we have sentences. They're guidelines. And we're looking at what comes at us, what do we hear, what do we see, and how does that all play together?